Well, these are the photos from the last couple of days, and we've had some pretty exciting times here. I hope you'll enjoy sharing these with us. It's a very eclectic, this week that just went by was a very eclectic week. I had several little things I wanted to do around the shop, the house, bike riding, Perkins, Karen's working on her garden. And one of the things, of course, we wanted to do is get some riding in. So that's always job one, is getting some riding in. Now, there's a connecting road between the two spots where we like to do our sport riding up in Perkins. And this is the connecting road, and there's almost always deer on it. If you look just above the mirror here, and it's very tempting to want to go down this road at full speed, but there's always deer. And many times I've done this just to see how friendly they are, or how unfriendly, or whatever. Is I've just pretty much, it's hard to say, pulled up next to them and invited them to come over for a beer. Well, they don't drink beer, so that ends that action. But this connecting road, there's another one here. I see another one right up here. But there's something I've become aware of, and when I go up during the weekend, I'm riding by myself a lot, I know I almost always see deer along this road. And they could ruin their whole day, not only my whole day, if we hit one of them. But anyway, this was a day I wanted to get my 100-mile ride in, get my exercise, because I had a lot of stuff to do back at the house. I wanted to get some pictures of the bike, of course. Something I always enjoy, sharing the pictures with our friends. Various shots of the bike. Or people that have never been up in our park and shared Bear Mountain Park with us. But this is the real crux of this week, and I wanted to congratulate Karen on doing a wonderful job. Our wisteria that's on the pergola here, she really spends a lot of time, and of course we love our fish. Are just starting to eat food now. They've come out of hibernation. We got a bunch of little plants, and as the summer goes by, I'm sure what you're going to see is they're growing and growing and growing, because I love just putting a few pictures in with all our ride pictures. Always makes me very, very, I don't know, content to sit out here in the morning and have a cup of coffee before I go on a ride and watch the little plants become big plants. And of course she's got all her vegetables growing in the back, and that wisteria. If you look at this, and you really can't see it unless you focus in on it, that wisteria is in its cycle of about 2 weeks every year. It just absolutely beautiful over the pond. Then it all falls into the pond, and I've got to spend half my life scooping it out. But we really have enjoyed our backyard. And now with Miles, of course, we enjoy it even more because we're back there more often. Anybody that knows about wisteria knows, and sometimes ours blooms twice a year. I don't know why. There's been times we've got a full bloom somewhere in August. The pond is just starting to come to life now. The underwater plants are starting to sprout up. And we've added a couple of things. This was from Rich and Edie Oliver. Some of the things, the bird bass, and we love having the birds nesting in our backyard. And this is just one of the things. It just couldn't be more fun than having that, and of course the wonderful house that Karen has made. All her decorative abilities. It really is very nice coming home from a ride and knowing that the house is in order and my coffee's waiting for me out on the porch. My plants are waiting to be watered every night. The garden's growing a little bit every day. And of course, if it gets hot, we can just sit out under our umbrella here, play with the baby, feed the fish. Feed the fish even more. And later on in the day, Luciano came by. He came by with his truck because we needed to pick up this shed, and it's over 200 pounds, so we had a little bit of an issue getting it on his truck. We had to take that torn out cover off and everything. But in that box is the shed I'm going to use to clean out the snow blowers and lawn mowers out of the garage, because we're expanding our motorcycle empire out there. and we're going to be moving stuff around. I spent the whole day getting this bike ready for track day for Luciano. Now, I won't be going with him because I have stuff planned for that day with Karen, but he's going to take it down, and it'll be the first track day he's had on this bike anyway, and it's all safety wired up now and ready to go. And he was a little concerned about, there was some smoke coming out of the lower fairing, and it turned out there was some oil inside the lower fairing that the exhaust pipe was rubbing on. And so what we did, we wound up taking that lower fairing off and just leaving it exposed the same way it is on Rob's bike. And that solved an annoying problem. I guess eventually the oil would have all boiled away, grease or whatever there. And actually it was pretty nice and clean under there. I was surprised. But again, a nice track bike. It's a 750, a 1989. I rode up to Luciano's, and somewhere else on our video, I made a little video of this bike running. Now it's done and ready for its initial test ride. And we did a lot of work, paint work, and he did a lot of work on this too. It's got flat side carburetors, expansion chambers, and that'll of course just be a separate video. And of course the fun we always have, riding up to Perkins to see all the old men. And they're getting older by the year. The bikes are not getting older, but they are. And we always enjoy hanging out with them anyway. It's always a nice low-key day, checking out the bikes, lying to each other about how young and virile we all are. And there's always somebody, this is Joe's Moto Guzzi, a Grizzo that's real nice. He just got this. There's always something unusual. There's always somebody up there with an expensive bike or with an unusual bike or an old bike. There's a 1915 Harley up there all the time. But the best part of the day is lying and cheating and stealing from your friends and making fun of each other. I don't know that it would be the same if we didn't have that camaraderie. I don't know that it would be if you hung around with guys that were serious and they were all, well, we don't know, but yeah, Luciano was putting a potato in somebody's exhaust pipe here or whatever he was doing. And Luciano was riding his R6 up there that day. We were looking at the paint, and he was complaining that there was a spot on the paint, and it turned out it was wax that he never wiped off. And then one of our friends who has a TZ, which is a no-fork front steering Ducati powered bike, a Bimota. He has another Bimota, and we looked at that Bimota for a while somewhere during this day. And it's always interesting looking at these very expensive bikes. In fact, he had a girl that was, I'm not sure where this was going, but Jose was giving his 2 cents. Yeah, lay down like that, it's comfortable, don't worry, after 2 hours you'll never be able to get up. I was looking at some of the carbon fiber. Now this has, I know what this carbon fiber is. This is a very thin layer. It's almost like paper that they put, first they put the clear into the mold, then they put this in. And it's a female mold, and then this becomes the finish. And they don't have to buff it out or anything, but the problem is the tooling is many thousands of dollars for that kind of work. But some of the little parts on this, some of the little machine parts like back of the swing arm, and people that don't know about this type of carbon fiber, they think this is well, it is carbon fiber, but it's just, this is an appearance related part. They put that on for the finish, and inside it's of course the normal weave. Another unusual carbon is the one on Two Brothers exhaust, where it's in the outer skin more or less. Some really cool looking mufflers on this. Now we were laughing because this word, I was saying, Ducati has all these words that proto dunco, manco dunco, and dinko danko, dunko dunko, and nobody, of course, Luciano speaks Italian, of course, and he knows what that means. But you know, it could mean you know, Mr. Potato Head for all I know. Look at it! Look at a nice front end on this with all these body parts, and I looked real close. They are really all carbon fiber. And they just leave some of them exposed so you can see the carbon. Pretty sexy looking front end. But I guess for 40 grand you get a sexy front end. I guess. I don't know. And there's Pokey leaving. And we had a guy, this was pretty funny, he came up on this Daviel, and he was telling us all little nitty problems he had, and I was just thinking, these are pretty expensive bikes to have screws fall out of and whatever, and you know, and then I looked on the cover of Road Racing World at the bike that's on the cover, and the screws that hold the muffler cover on are coming off. One of them is already off. If you look at the cover, you'll see. It's pretty funny. And we looked at these close already. Is Joe leaving? He's pretty much happy with his Motor Guzzi. He's got a fairing for it already. The leaves are starting to fill in. From this point on in the year, everything's just going to get nicer and nicer and nicer. It's really going to be nice. He had a custom plate. One of the things on his Daviel that fell apart, it cracked the license plate. This thing was loose. It was flapping around. The muffler cover was flapping around, and I was just looking at this and I was saying, you know, I wouldn't bring this back to the dealer. I just resolved these little problems myself. Just, I don't know. Now we had a lot of fun with this lady here. Now she was checking out the Ferrari bike, and I had a real nice conversation with her. In fact, I gave her one of my business cards. I hope she gets to look on YouTube and see herself. And she was impressed that I was going to put her picture on YouTube. Hey, now, yeah, look, I don't want to cheat you out of your 15 minutes of fame. There you are. And I'm sure we'll see her again, because she said she comes up there quite often. And she loved the Ferrari bike. Now that was the last ride I took on the FCR with the clip-ons. From that point on, I had taken a day and swapped over to, and I'll show that on a future video, I have handlebars on it now. That'll make it, because we're not going to use it for a track day bike, it'll just make it more comfortable. And Sunday morning, Rob had time to ride. And we started out another day having a nice cup of coffee at the house, running up to Luciano's, taking a Suzuki out for another spin. He had his ZX-10. And we had just another one of those memorable rides. And there's always the people that you run into that they're just a nice group of people, I think. It's a safe way to say it. And they're always harassing each other, always making fun of each other. There's always something that's funny at the end of the day. And this was not the guy that we gave him a hard time the week before about how big his mufflers were. There's apparently more than one of those green meanies around. And it's just an endless supply of bikes. They just come in every shape and form, but it's the people. People confuse motorcycling thinking it's about motorcycles. Here's our drag racing friend, world champion drag racer, now retired. There's always some fancy cars up there. Today there was some vets. I didn't even bother taking pictures of them. There's so many of these cars around. And one of the new Mustangs came by with a really cool sounding exhaust system. And I mean, all these cars have 500 horsepower now. If you were into cars, this is a golden time to get one of these retro cars. Jose's bike. This is something I never even think about, is riding around with numbers on your bike. Boy, if that isn't an invitation to get a ticket. One of those, I don't know what they call them, the Chevy things that look like a truck. One of the real hot Camaros with it sounded like he had 1,000,000 horsepower. And now, to be honest, this bike looks too clean to be. Yeah, I can't imagine somebody would be really racing and riding on the street with the numbers still on the bike, but you never know. That's the problem, you never know. Yeah, there's an old, what looked like an old Triumph till you looked at it close, and it really wasn't an old one. It went off. Our friends that's up there all the time. Cujo. We always have, I haven't seen him yet this year. The guy that has the dog that dresses up in a fireman suit. Now this is funny, if you look at this close, Karen went shopping this day, found a garage sale and bought the boy a scooter and a helmet. It's a Hot Wheels scooter, and she wants to park it in between the motorcycles. And I don't know if that's going to happen, because we're going to reorganize the whole garage. Once we set up that shed, we're going to do a complete reorg. And I hope that's going to be coming. See, the shed is still in the box. We haven't done it yet. So, it may be coming soon. Anyway, when you come back from a ride, this is always the thing I think about. On the ride back, it's 62 miles back from Perkins. So basically it's a 124-mile round trip. Then I add the little jog handle into Oakland to pick up Luciano, and it comes out to about 140 miles for that typical loop. And that's usually a real nice ride. It's not too long, not too short, and a lot of it's twisties, a lot of it's highway, so you basically get a nice variety of riding. But I always enjoy, and I don't know why, coming home, knowing that the coffee will be waiting for me, lunch will be waiting. And look at this wisteria up here. Wow. You're not going to see this 2 weeks from now. So we got to get a picture of it now. We got to get our get as much of it as we can. But it really is nice coming from home from a ride and seeing that wisteria.